Hey everyone, welcome to Musical Musing, the channel where I analyze and discuss musicals from both stage and screen. And today I really want to talk about Little Shop of Horrors.
Little shop of horrors. You'll never stop the terror.
Now, full disclosure, if you made me pick my favorite musical, this would probably be it. It's one of the first musicals I was ever interested in, and so it has a ton of nostalgic value for me. In a nutshell, Little Shop is basically the story of Seymour Krelborn, a down-on-his-luck poor clerk at a florist shop on Skid Row. He finds a strange plant that ends up making him famous and wealthy because of how unusual it is. But the catch is that the plant feeds on human blood, and so as it grows, he has to find increasingly morally dubious ways to feed it, and this all ultimately leads to his own tragic death. So, at its core, Little Shop is basically a retelling of the story of Dr. Faustus. Dr. Faustus, for those who aren't familiar with it, is an Elizabethan play about a man who sells his soul to the devil in order to become a powerful magician. And he ends up realizing what a huge mistake he's made, but it's too late and the devil comes and does end up claiming his soul. And this parallel is really important because Dr. Faustus and Little Shop essentially have the same moral, which is don't sell your soul for fame, fortune, or success.
I signed this contract that means I'm willing to keep on doing my awful evil thing.
So, keeping this relatively simple moral in mind, I want to discuss the ending of the film version of Little Shop, directed by Frank Oz, and why it doesn't really work. Now, specifically, I want to talk about the ending included with the director's cuts. So, when Little Shop was being filmed, it was originally shot with an ending that was really close to the ending of the original play version. Seymour and his love interest, Audrey, both die, and then the plant ends up taking over the whole world. And this did not sit well with test audiences, and so it was changed completely to a happy ending. And this is the ending that most people are familiar with the film version. Years later, audiences were finally given a chance to see the original tragic ending in the form of a director's cut DVD. Now, I'm not a fan of the happy ending where Audrey and Seymour survive and get married, and there are a lot of reasons why I don't think it works, so I was really excited to get to see the ending that was truer to the stage play. But ultimately, I didn't find the director's cut ending to be any more satisfying than the changed happy ending. So why is that? The director's cut was so much closer to the play, and the ending of the play worked great, so why does it fail on film? And I think this really has to do less with the ending itself, and has more to do with all the small changes that the movie made to the story leading up to the ending. So let's rewind a bit and look at that. The first moment I want to talk about is when Seymour kind of inadvertently kills Audrey's abusive boyfriend, Orrin, the sadistic dentist. And he's one of the main antagonists early on in the show. And Seymour, after realizing that he can rescue Audrey from her abusive situation and feed his plant by killing Orrin, shows up at his office with a gun prepared to shoot him. Now, in both the movie and the play, Seymour ends up not being able to bring himself to shoot, and Orrin sort of ends up accidentally doing the job for him. He's addicted to laughing gas and puts a gas mask on, but the gas mask breaks and he ends up not being able to get it off and ultimately suffocates because Seymour does nothing to help him. In the movie, this all happens really quickly. Seymour barely has time to react because Orrin dies within like a few seconds, practically. However, in the stage version, there's a whole song here, and a large part of the song is Seymour debating the ethical dilemma of whether or not he should help Orrin, and Orrin repeatedly begging for help as he slowly suffocates over several minutes.
Albeit here is an ethical dilemma, lest I help him get the mask removed. He doesn't have a prayer. True, the gun was never fired, but the way events transpired, I can finish it with simple, lazy clear. Albeit here is a tricky moral problem. Should I help remove the mask or let him go for lack of air? Couldn't shoot him when I tried, but the phaser on my side. Get off the guy by staying in the chair.
And now in the play, Seymour is very clearly making a choice here, and he sticks with that choice throughout the whole song while watching Orrin die. The second moment I want to talk about is pretty similar. Seymour's boss at the flower shop, Mr. Mushnick, gets suspicious that Seymour is the one who murdered Orrin after the police report him missing. He threatens to turn Seymour in, and Seymour ultimately gets the plant to eat Mushnick in order to get him out of the way. Well, in the play, Mushnick doesn't have any conclusive evidence of what Seymour's done. Several items were found connecting Seymour to the crime, but there's no conclusive proof. Meanwhile, in the film, Mushnick literally sees Seymour chop up Orrin's body to feed to the plant. This really raises the stakes for film Seymour. He needs to get rid of Mushnick because Mushnick absolutely knows what he's done. But despite this, the play Seymour is still more active in this scene. He tells Mushnick in the play that he hid the shop's earnings for the day in the plant, and Mushnick needs to go look inside the plant to get the money. Meanwhile, film Seymour doesn't do any of this. He says nothing about there being money in the plant. He does kind of back Mushnick towards the plant slightly, but it's Mushnick's own curiosity at the plant's open mouth that causes him to lean in and get eaten. And Seymour even tries to stop him at the last second. So clearly we're seeing a trend of Seymour in the play being a more active participant in the things that happen than film Seymour is. Both of these deaths seem almost accidental in the film, as opposed to a result of Seymour's deliberate actions. Okay, so the last moment I want to talk about is Seymour's final conversation with Audrey before she dies. In the play, Seymour is becoming increasingly stressed by the plant and is acting really strangely, and this leads to Audrey being really concerned about him.
No one might be, so it's flowing for blood.
Blood feeding, blood, I don't get it, Seymour. Oh, it's nice, rat poison. It's scaring me.
He convinces Audrey to leave the shop, promising that he's going to explain everything later, but in the end, she's so worried about him that she comes back, and this directly leads to her being mortally wounded by the plants. In the film, there's a kind of similar scene, but it ends well. Seymour convinces Audrey he's fine, and they actually agree to get married. So Audrey goes home happy and has no reason to come back, except that the plant literally calls her on the telephone. So, once again, Seymour in the film is not really an active character here. It's not his fault Audrey gets attacked by the plant, it's the plant's fault completely. So now, let's take a look at how this all ties into the ending. When Frank Oz was asked about why he thought the original tragic ending didn't test well with audiences, he said, "I learned a lesson. In the stage play, you kill the leads and they come out for a bow. In a movie, they don't come out for a bow. They're dead. They're gone, and so the audience lost the people they loved." I just don't really agree with this. I think film audiences are more than willing to accept a character's death if that death is satisfying in terms of the narrative of the story being told. And with all these changes made in the earlier parts of the film, the ending just isn't narratively satisfying. Little Shop is about the dangers of making a deal with the devil. And because Seymour is so much more inactive in the film than he is in the play, in terms of the deaths that he causes, it doesn't really feel like he has made the choice to sell his soul. He's not innocent enough to deserve the happy ending that he gets in the original film ending, but he also hasn't really done enough to deserve being killed. So many of the bad things he does are almost kind of by accident, and that's what makes his death so unsatisfying. And this really brings me to the most fundamental change with the ending itself. In the play, Seymour jumps into the plant in a last effort to destroy it.
Maybe you're tough on the outside, but in there, in that bottle, I get a bit tough, get you from the inside. Open up! Open up! Open up! No!
He even makes an active choice in his death, and he goes down trying to destroy the monster that he created. He takes responsibility for his actions, even if it's too late. In the film, the plant literally just picks Seymour up and eats him. Once again, he is inactive. His fate is unsatisfying because it's simply forced on him, as opposed to being one last heroic active choice. This is Musical Musing, signing off.